Mesechta Menochos, the Lamed Tes Amud Aleph. We're starting from the top of the line. Okay, and regards from California. What's his name? My Mechutton said he saw you on the thing. What's his name? Mutel. Okay. Zag die Yimar V'Amar Rabba. We're starting from the top. V'Amar Rabba. Rabba said, Shema Bina. From here is a raya. Kesha Elyon. It's the wrong side. It's this side. This side. V'Amar Rabba statement. Okay. So Rabba said that the Shema Bina. For here we have a raya. Kesha Elyon. Kesha Elyon is the knot, the last knot of all the sections. All the sections together, you know, there's 4 sections with 5 knots. That whole thing with the 5 knots with all the sections is called Gidil. Every small section is called Chulya. At the end of all the sections, there was another double knot. That double knot that we make at the end of all the sections, Gidil is a fodim. Gidil means the whole braided section. Huh? Okay, here you have this last knot. Well, it's getting. Here we go. This last knot. If this whole thing, all these sections, all this from here to here is called a Gidil. Every section is called a Chulya. So 4 seconds. Right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have double knots, 5 knots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The 5th knot, the last knot, is Medaraisa. This is called Psil. These are called the branches, the fringes. I don't know, or the strings. Okay, Zakti Rabba says that last kesher, the last one after the Gedil, is Medaraisa, is Menatera. These how could I tell you, because if you're going to think it's only Medarabbanan, first the Gemara, my yitzich lemishay sudden betzitzis. So others say that since you don't that if this is the only knot, let's say this was the only knot, they didn't have a knot by each section. He made all the coils. The coils are the ones that go around. The whole from here to here has got to be 12 finger breadths. This is supposed to be a third, fourth finger breadths, and the strings are supposed to be 8. So this, So what? 12 altogether. Now, till now we're only talking about he made all the coils with 1 knot, right? Here we have 5 knots, 5 double knots, but here he made a double knot. That double knot, that 1 knot that you have to make is midaraisa, he says. Because why? Because he says these halkadai to the Habbanan, because if you think it's the Habbanan, my Yitzchak Mishnah said the Torah gave us such a strong chidush that shatnez is forbidden to wear. But when it comes to tzitzis, you can wear shatnez. You can have a talis, a baguette of linen, and then you can have wool fringes attached to it. For talis, you're allowed to wear shatnez. Says Gemara, but if you're saying that you don't need that knot, so everything is like will unravel. So it's not really tied to the beged. So it's not really part of the beged. So if it's loose, if it's not part of the beged, I don't need a chiddush from the Torah to tell me you're allowed to wear shatnez. It's not shatnez. Says Gemara, and that's what he's going to ask. My tzitzis. Why does the Torah have to allow linen with wool by tzitzis shatnez? Pshita, it's pashut. If the knot is not required, then it's not going to be shatnez. I take it kifa achas. One who only makes 1 stitch to stitch the wool and linen together is ein chiba. It's not considered as attached. It's not considered as one beged. Elishmamina only zaraya. The only way to say that it's a chidush, that the knot is midaraisa. The only way to be mekayim the tzitzis is to really knot it, that it should be part of the beged, and that's the chidush. That even though it's going to be wool with linen, it's still going to have a din of tzitz. I mean, you're not going to be able on shatnez. If the chut was nifsik over here, you see, you have like a loop that goes around. Mm-hmm. If one of these strings got ripped, it's puzzle. Why? Because if one of these strings got ripped, it's all braided in together with the other 4. So it's going to be puzzle if one of them is ripped. Yosef Rav Nachman.
Then it's going to come out of the beggar.
One is cut. One is cut right at the beginning on the loop. You know the loop that goes right over here. One is cut, and then they're all mixed together. They're braided together with a puzzle at tzitza because one is not really attached. So it's puzzle. Yosef Rav Nachman Kamel Lahosh Maiter. Rav Nachman sat down and he said about this sugya. Rav Nachman. Rav asked a question to Rav Nachman. Abed, what about Murim? When do we say that the fringes, the strings, need a shear bitchilase? When the tzitzis are hanging from the baguette, at the time when you're making the baguette, you need the full shear. You need that it should be 12 agudlin. Aval b'sefer, but if at the end it got cut off, shida v'gadumav, kolshu, even if there's only a drop left, it's still going to be kosher.
How would it cut off?
Huh? You were going on a bike, to the chain of the wheels, or somebody's walking and you're stepping on your talus and you're pulling up your talus and you give it a good yank, and one tzitza stays under your shoe. So that.
You know, Rabbi Wright.
Yeah.
So I took him for a ride to drop him by the shul someplace, and it just came out with a safety belt. She would plug him in. I let him off. It was a busy street. And I said, Robert, okay. He's checking with the safety belt, and the whole tzitza got
ripped
torn
off.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a story.
I've never seen a man, 9-year-old man, half a second the shirt was off, the coat was off.
He took it off.
Okay,
He took off everything. It was sunny California. That's not a problem. Exactly. He wanted to show off his body. Okay, exactly. You want a sheet up.
The idea because it was puzzle.
Yeah. I know.
I said, take mine. There's no convenience. Take my.
Sag you my sheet of my gaduma. What does it mean? Shirav? What does gaduma mean? My love, is it not shirav? The avsimenayo. The ishtaymenayo. Shirav are the fringes, are the strings that it ripped, and there was leftover pieces, so that's fine. The ishtaymenayo, there was leftover gaduma. The gadume. Gaduma means that it was ripped over here, right at the beginning. Says you want to law. It's not true. That's not what it means. It means that chodek, it's one thing. Sheyure gadumav kolshu. He's saying this sheyure, if there was left over from the fringes, from the tzitzis, a kolshu, even a kolshu, it's still going to be kosher. In fact, you might say, if it's one thing, sheyure and gaduma is one thing, v'leima gadumav sheet of lamali. Why are you using two lashenas? Why do you use the word gaduma? Why are you saying shira? And you want to hakamash? But this is what he's come to tell us. The beinan shiyure in the leftover of the tzitzis of these fringes, ligaduma means from the amputees. Amputees means it's cut off. You need kedei lamvan in order to be able to make a bow, like a little bow, like this. That's all. And then that you can pull it out. That's the type of a bow. Zog the Yimada. Yasser Rabba Rekamish made it up. The Rabba sat down and he said in the name of Rav Chut Shal Kerach. You know, when you make the tzitzis, you put it in the fold, and you have 4 on each side, and you want each one to correspond to the other side. So one side you tie, and one side you have one long one. It's called the shamish. That long one is the one that you make the kriches, you make the coils. Zok the Yimara, that one long one doesn't have to be a new string. Of the 4 strings that are folded up, one is longer. But now it doesn't have to be a noch to use as a shamish. No. So he says, here, chut shal kerach comes from those tzitzis that you inserted as the tzitzis. It would only be for the kricha you would use it, but still, you don't do that. You don't need it. Rabbi Yosef says, Shmuel Amra v'loy Rav. This halacha that we just said, that the shamish is part of the tzitzis, wasn't said in the name of Rav. It was said in the name of Shmuel. That's all he's saying. Itman Abi also learned. Amar Rabba Bachana Sach Li Rabbi Yosef ben Usha. In the name of Shmuel, Rabbi Yosef from Usha said, "Chut shel kerach oil ben aminyan," that the chut, that long shamish, could be part of the tzitzis. Yosef Rabba, we call him Mishmei the Shmuel. Rabba said in the name of Shmuel, Tcheles. Here, Tcheles doesn't mean blue wool. Here, Tcheles means tzitzis. Tzitzis. The vol and the tzitzis. That he did mostly, you see, here if you remember, we said the braided area is supposed to be 1/3, and the string should be 2/3. Instead, he made the braided area 2/3, and he left 1/3 of the fringes. Says the Yimara Kshed, it's still kosher. Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rav Amar, Rav said of Loishmo. Itman Nami, we also learn similarly the same as Rabbi Yosef, Arayat Rabbi Yosef, that even if the braided area is 2/3, it's still kosher. Where do we see that? Amar Rav Huna bar Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheish, Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Rav Tchelis, the tzitzis shekarach ruba, that most of it was the braided area, the 2/3 were braided. Kshed, it's going to be kosher. Rav Chibarei Rav Nasan Masnei Hachi. Rav Chibarei Rav Nasan learns like this. Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Sheish, Amar Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amar Rav Tchelis shekarach ruba ksheda. Again, the tzitzis, that the majority is the braided, and only the miyut, the leftover is the small amount of fringes. It's still kosher. Even if he made only one section, he didn't do all these sections. One section, he says you yaitza. One section, ksheda. But if you want beauty, shlish gedil, 1/3 should be the braided area, and 2/3 should be the tzitzis. Ushnei shlishei anav, and 2/3 should be the branches. He calls the tzitzis the branches.
Because of the tchelis.
No, he says the braided should be 1/3.
It's nicer.
It's nicer when the braided is 1/3 and the tzitzis is 2/3. That's nicer. And the sachakol should be 12. We'll soon see why 12. Okay. Tanya, we had learned in the Braisa. Rabbi Yomer, Rabbi says, Kedesha yikreich v'yishno yishalish. He says that, which words? Shlish. Oh, v'kamashir choya. How much is the minimum of a section? Rabbi Yomer, Kedesha yikreich v'yishno yishalish. At least 3 kriches. That's min ha-Torah. Now we're going to learn mitzvah min ha-mufcha. Yeah. You turn 3 times, then you make one section out of it. But he says, but min ha-mufcha, now we're going to learn, Tana, ha-peirs le-yivchas mishava. But if you want to do min ha-mufcha, don't do it less than 7. V'ha-meisiv lo yisal shleish hesed. And if you add, don't add more than 13. Ha-peirs le-yivchas mishava. One who wants to make less, don't do less than 7. Why 7? Kineged shiver ekivin. Corresponding the 7 heavens. And the one that adds, don't add more than 13. You have 7. You have 7 himlin.
7, 9, 11, 13.
We do 7, 8, 11, and 13. 11, 13. Okay. So here he says, and Rashi brings down like this. What's the inyan of 4 sections, 5 knots? Why 5 knots? Because B'chal tzitzis. It says and it's called mitzvahs. You'll see the tzitzis, and that will remind you of all the mitzvahs. How many mitzvahs are there? 613. You take the word tzitzis, tzadik yud, and plus taf. Taf is 400, and then you have twice tzadik yud, which each one is 100, 600 so far. Now, how many strings do you have? How many strings do you have? You want to count? 8. So 608. And then you have another 5 knots. So that 5 plus 8 is 13. So there you go. When you look at the tzitzit, you remind yourself of the kol. It's called. Here you got all the mitzvahs. Okay. Tana Kishu Maskal, we learned when he starts to make the coils, Maskal, the lava, he should start with the white with thread. If he's doing the coils with 2. With the loven and the tchelis, start with the loven first. You remember, because akonov is the loven, and so tchelis comes later. He says akonov mimin konov, ukeshu mesayim loven. And when he finishes, it should be with loven. Why? Because you're supposed to go up in kedusha. So when you're finishing the mitzvah of the braided, it has to be in the elevated kedusha, not going down. In between, you see. I wish I had a picture, but yeah, you see a mixture. Yeah. So you might have Rav V'Rabba Ba Bar Chana have a Yossi. They were both sitting. Have a Kachalva also Ahu Gavra. There was this person that passed by them, and the Mechasik Lima, the Kula Tchelta, or the Mi Lei Tchelta. This person was wearing a beged tcheles. And the tzitzis were also tchelis, but he didn't have tzitzis. He had just the braided area without the fringes. He only had this area that came out of the tchelis. So he had it braided together with the chelas. Okay. Ugdila migdal, and he had it only braided. Amarava. Rava said, Yoy glima, the baguette is a beautiful baguette. It's nice, a nice baguette from chelas. Oh, but the tzitz is not so nice. He's missing the fringes. He only had the braided area. He didn't have this. He only had from here to here.
He was mocking him that,
He wasn't mocking. It was a guy that passed by.
He didn't have fringes.
No, he didn't have fringes. He says he had the baguette or the tzitzis. He wasn't yaitza. The tchelta, even though the gedil is also part of the tzitzis, he says that's not good enough. You need to have the fringes too. Rabba ba chana ama yoy glimi yoy tchelta. Rabba ba chana said no, it's perfect. He has a beautiful baguette and his tzitzis. Everything is perfect. Like, what are they arguing about? Says the Gemara, Rabba ba chana saba, ksiv gedil. It says in the Torah gedil, which means the braided. Uksiv psil. Psil means the strings. So from these two lashonos, we learn out that the tzitzis is oy gedil oy psil. You could either have the gedil, or you could either have the big deal, I mean the braided area, or you could have the psil, or the tzitzis. So that's why it says twice about the gedil. It's two different psukim. One pasuk is in Perek HaBeis Yud Beis Gedilim Tas Lecha Kafis Al Abba Kafis Ksuscha. That's in pasuk Yud Beis, and then you have in Perek Tesvav Lamed Ches V'Nos Nal Tzitza Kana Psil. Yep. So he says it's either or. But Rav Sava L'Olam Psil Beinan. Everybody holds you still need the strings. Gedilim is coming to tell you how many strings, because the gedil, one, if it would say belashon yachid gedil, it automatically means two strings, because medaftes tzanei flachten. In order to braid it, you need two strings minimum. So gedil is automatically two. Now it says gedilim plural, so it's 2 plus 2, so it's 4. Now it also says psil. So it's abba. Gedilim is telling you abba, you need 4 strings, and then the pasuk continues. Asay gedil upaisleu miteichai, and from the gedil you should have psilim, the strings coming out of it. So therefore, he holds you need both, and that's why he says if it was only gedil, you're not yaitz. You need both. Oh ma Shmuel mishmei the lady. Shmuel said in the name of lady, chutei tzema peitin baget shal pishtan. Tzemer. Strings of wool could a baggage shapishna of linen. Which word? Chutei tzema poitin bishal pishtan. That the chutin of wool could part of linen, a baggage of linen. Shal pishtan mao sheyiftru bebishal tzema. He says, how about if the strings were pishtan? We know the strings. If the strings are wool, it'll part to a linen baguette. Take the reverse. The baguette is wool, but the strings are linen. Will that be good? So that's his shaila. Tzema shal pishna hu the potter, even the tcheles potter. So lavanam potter. So therefore, even white wool will be potter. So he says, I know why wool will potter the baguette, because the Torah says psil tcheles. Psil tcheles is wool versus a baguette that's linen, so that's what the pasuk was talking about. So just like tcheles, which is wool, is good, which is blue wool, white wool is the same thing. It's the same. It's material wool, and it's not from the same material of the baguette. The chiddush is that even though it's wool and it's not mikanof of the same material as the baguette, it's going to pattern. Aval pishtim, but what if the chutim are the linen? And the bit and the baguette is wool, loy, maybe it's not going to patter it. Or more perhaps, kivin the chsiv, loy silba shatnas tzema upishtam yachto. Since it says in general, wool and linen should not be together, but gedilim tasalach. But it says tzitzis you could make with it. So maybe loy shnot tzema bepishtam, loy shnot pishtam etzema. Maybe it won't make a difference. Which is the baguette? If the baguette is wool and the tzitzis are linen, or the tzitzis the baguette is linen and the tzitzis are wool, won't make a difference. So you want to touch my alliance here. The Omar Rachava Omar Rabbi Yehuda. Rachava said in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, Chutei tzema the strings of wool paitim beged shopishtim is going to be pata the beged if it's linen, and the same thing the shopishtan if the chutima pishtan are linen paitim be shel tzema is going to pata beged shel tzema. So here you have an answer. Either way is good. Chutei tzema pishtin. What's if it's the chutim alone is a mixture of zusammen, two of wool and two of linen. Poitim b'chol makim, it's going to pata always. Va'afilu b'shirayim, even if the beged is made out of silk. Well, Pligei Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman argues because the Rav Nachman hashirayim, if it's linen, it's pturim and tzitzis. It's part of tzitzis. You don't need tzitzis altogether. So in fact, the Yemana and not only that, since it's part of tzitzis, the Yemana is going to ask later. So if it's part of tzitzis, so when you put shatnez, you're not doing it because of tzitzis, and if you put the wool and linen strings on a beged that you don't need tzitzis, you're wearing shatnez. The Yemana is going to ask that. Eisei Rav Nachman. Rav asked Hashayil to Rav Nachman. Hashiroyin, the silk, the regular silk, the hakolach. Hakolach is a floss silk. It's a higher, different grade of silk.
Better material.
Yeah, it's not still like the fish that we had this past Shabbos, the sable, but basilikin is probably like the sable fish. Basilikin, it's a corded of silk. Kulam chayim b'tzitzis. They're all chayim and tzitzis. All grades of silk. So how did Rav Nachman say? How do we say that? We say Rav Nachman said he's potter. He says the Braisa midrabanan. Rav Nachman explains that only midrabanan you're chayiv, but midaraisa you're not. In fact, if midaraisa you're not chayiv, look what it says in the sefer. The kulam, all categories of silk. Tzema pishtam peitim behem. If they put on tzema, a wool tzitzis, strings, wool with linen, it's going to pata the mitzvah of the silk. In fact, you want to if you say that it's minatera that silk needs tzitzis, hainu the mishtaru behu kalayim. That's why we allowed the tzitzis to be made out of kalayim, because it's tzitzis, and tzitzis overrides the mitzvah tzitzis, which is the araisa, overrides shatnez minatera. But if you say silk is not mechiv and tzitzis midaraisa, it's only midrabanan, and shatnez is a isa daraisa. How did you allow that the tzitzis should be wool and linen, which is a isa daraisa, and silk doesn't even need minatera tzitzis? So it's regular shatnez. And the Yemara Ema say he didn't mean that he could have wool and linen of tzitzis together, shatnez together. Ema say, oi tzema, oi pishtim. The pshat and the price was either he could use tzema to part the shirai or the pishtim, but not that the tzitzis were together. Okay. Yeah, so he said it now. So he's letting pshat. It doesn't mean you can have him. The Tanakam, the one that argues that Rav Nachman says you could have a mix, but Rav Nachman learned the pshat and the brayso. It's oi. It doesn't mean that they were mixed. Says the Gemara. So too, it's reasonable to say the Ketani Seifa, because we learned at the end of the brayso, hein, the strings were made out of silk, beminon, and it was of the same material of the beged, which was silk. We say that the silk tzitzis could pata a beged which is made out of silk. Shaloi b'minan, but silk frit strings. No, pata is yaitza.
Is this the first time you're saying this?
Oh, on silk, yeah. But shaloi b'minan, if you want to use silk strings, tzitzis, and the beged is not made of silk, ain't paitin, it won't pata it. Now, iyamar to b'shloima. Midrabanan, if you say that these begadim are chai b'tzitzis only midrabanan, hainu the mifter b'minan, then I understand why the silk tzitzis will pater the beged of silk. But if you're going to say that the beged of shiraim is mechuyev tzitzis daraisa, The only thing that could pater a beged, which is mechuyev b'tzitzis daraisa, is only tzema upishtim upeita.
It says psil chelis,
Because it has no tzema upishtim is we're going to learn out why. We learn it out from a binyan av that when it says beged, it means wool or linen. So the only time that tzitzis, what type of tzitzis could pater a beged which is mechuyev b'daraisa tzitzis, the only type of tzitzis is only wool or linen, not any other min. And here we said by the silk, even if he put the silk pishton of tzitzis, it's yitzis. So it has to be, it wasn't mechuyev and tzitzis with daraisa. Because if the silk beged was mechuyev and tzitzis daraisa, the only tzitzis that will be valid would be wool and linen, not silk. And we said silk is good, wool or linen, yeah. Zog the Gemara, imishum ha lo yirya. That's your raya. He says that's not a raya. I can tell you the Rava is a contradiction. See, in one pasuk it says hakonov, that the tzitzis has to be made out of the same material as the beged. Mimin hakonov has to be from the min, the same material of the beged. Uksiv, and in another pasuk it says no tzitzis tzema upishtim. You can have wool or linen.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so which one is it? Does it have to be from the material of the beged or tzema upishtim? So the Gemara answers, tzema upishtim poitim bein b'minam bein shloi b'minam. The Torah said tzema upishtim to tell you that even if the beged is not, if the tzitzis is not of the same min as the beged, tzema upishtim will always pater the beged, meaning will be yoytze with tzitzis.
even for silk.
Not for, we'll get to it now. Sure, meaning. But what if you want to use different strings, not wool or linen, like silk, then the only time silk will be valid if it's b'minan, if it's of the same min of the beged, then paitin. But shalei b'minan, then if it's not, if the silk tzitzis is not the same min as the beged, ein paitin or one pater. So really, silk is midaraisa. But the only ones that can pater all tzitzis is wool and linen if it's not from the same material as the beged. But if you want to use silk, another material for tzitzis, the only time that another min other than pishtim or tzema will be kosher, only if it's going to be from the same material as the beged. Says the Gemara now, but Rav Nachman, who says that silk is not chai midaraisa, from where do we know that? So it says the Gemara, the Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael, like we learned in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, the Tana Devei Rabbi Yishmael. We learned in the Braisa in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, Hayil and Nemru begodim b'Torah stam. Since it says begodim, like by tzitzis, it says akamfi v'gdeyim. It doesn't say what kind of beged. And then v'uparit loch hakasa be'ech behem. And then when it comes to tzaras, the tumah of a tzaras, it says v'habeged ki yiyeh b'neged tzaras be'beged tzema oy be'beged pishtim. So now we found by tzaras, what does beged mean? It has to be wool or linen. So you know that's a binyanav. A binyanav means that's the rule for everywhere where it says beged stam. It means either wool or linen, and therefore af kol. So too, even by tzitzis, where it says al kamfim vigdayim, it doesn't say what. It has to be tzema upishtim. Aber shiraim silk is not mechuyev in tzitzis. Oma Abaya. Abaya said, "V'hai tana devei Rabbi Yishmael mafke meidach tana devei Rabbi Yishmael." Abaya said, "I learned like this Tana that we just brought from the Beis Medrash Rabbi Yishmael. He argues on a different Tana in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael who learns the opposite. The Tana devei Rabbi Yishmael, that in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael they learned a different brayse. It says by Tumas Tzaras. It says, yeah." In the yeshiva of Rabbi Yishmael, two Tanoim. So this Tana learned beged ainli ela beged sema. From the word beged, I only know beged sema. Menayin l'rabbis. How do I know to include different material like tzema shel gemalim, wool of a camel, or the tzema shel arnovim, or wool of a rabbit, v'noitze shel izim, or the hairs of a goat, v'hakolach v'hasarikim v'ashiroyin. These are the three different levels of silk that we said before. Minayin, how do we know that these two are chayv and tzitzis? Talmud leima oy beged. There's an extra word that says oy beged. It says kiyiyah by neged tzeras bebeged sema oy bebeged pishlim. So the oy, not oy oy oy, oy, the word oy is come to teach us to be mabel all minim. Even silk is going to be mechuyev and tzitzis midaraisa. That's the maskana. That's maskana. That's machlekes between the two tanoim in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shmuel.